Hello, this is Dawn Priolet of dawnpriolet.com. And in this video, I want to talk about long distance relationships, fact or fantasy. And this is such a common thing now because there's so many people who are meeting each other online, and oftentimes there's a long distance between you. And sometimes we build up a fantasy in our mind. We project out into the other person everything that we want in a relationship. And it may not necessarily be fact. And if you right now are feeling kind of stuck in a long distance relationship because for whatever reason it's not moving forward, you haven't even actually met each other in person, I want to tell you something, and I'm sorry, I don't want to burst your bubble, but until you meet this person face to face in the flesh, it's just a fantasy. It's not real. And I want to tell you a story. This is a true story, but it will illustrate exactly what I'm saying. And it may save you months or maybe even years of putting your life on hold for something that may not even be real. So this was a client. It was a male client, and he is from the US, and he met a woman online, and she was in the UK. And they had been communicating with each other, mostly by chat and by Skype as well. And Skype, if you're familiar with Skype, that's about as close to meeting face-to-face as you're going to get because it's actually video calling. You can see their face just like you see my face in this video. It's as close to live as you're going to get. So they had been doing this communication back and forth for months. There were issues, about traveling to each other. They both have responsibilities, families, work, all of that. But finally, I think it was like about 6 months into their virtual relationship, he finally made arrangements to go and visit her in the UK. And he was to spend an entire month with her. Now, this couple had already started talking about marriage, possibly getting married. They had already started planning a future together. So it seemed to make sense to both of them that, he would come there and he would, stay with her at her place. And I forget if she lived in London or not, but I know that, there are some places like London are, accommodations are extremely expensive. So it may seem to make perfect sense, and it did to them, it made perfect sense that he would just stay with her. After all, they were talking about getting married. Well, when he arrived in the UK to meet her, this woman that he was so in love with that they were already talking about marriage. He said when he met her in person, he felt absolutely nothing. Nothing. And apparently she also didn't feel anything either. And so here, as you can imagine, it was a very awkward month, okay? Because, here they had already made plans. He was going to stay with her. And he stayed, but it was just incredibly awkward because they didn't know what happened. After all this time that they had been in communication with each other and Skyping and chatting and all of that and creating a future together. And then he arrived and then there was nothing. And so I want to say to you, if you are involved in a long distance relationship, you want to find out as quickly as possible whether it's real or not. And until you actually meet face to face in the flesh, you're not really going to know for sure. So, if you're feeling stuck right now, because maybe for whatever reason, his work, your work, whatever, whatever's going on in both of your lives that is preventing you from actually meeting in person and finding out for sure whether this is just a fantasy that the two of you have kind of built up, building castles up in the sky, or if it's real. Whatever's blocking you from doing that, according to law of attraction, if something isn't showing up in your life, whether it's a new job or whether it's the opportunity to meet this guy that you've been communicating with for, how many months, that means that the two of you, both of you, are co-creating this situation. It means that there is something that is blocking it from happening. And usually our blocks are quite subconscious, which means that you're not aware of them. So if you're in this situation, I want you to ask yourself this question: what am I getting out of this? How is this maybe protecting me from something? Am I keeping myself safe on an unconscious level? Am I really just afraid that if I meet this guy in person, the fantasy will be over and I'll realize that there's nothing there? And the other thing is, maybe you've created all these blocks, all these obstacles to meeting this person, because one thing that you may be getting out of it is you're keeping yourself safe in an odd kind of way, in kind of a backwards kind of way. Because guess what? As long as you're hung up on this guy who is so far out of your reach, well, you can't get hurt, can you? Because it's just a fantasy after all. You cannot get hurt again. You can't be disappointed because you never really get beyond the fantasy. And if you're like most women, you've probably completely stopped dating other men. You've put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. You've put everything, all of your time, your attention, your energy into this long-distance fantasy relationship, which may or may not have any substance whatsoever. So there again, you are making sure that you don't get hurt. Because as long as you're not actually dating anybody, as long as you're not actually physically involved with anyone, there's really not much risk of being hurt. The only way that you're being hurt is as you watch the days go by and the weeks and the months, and all this time your life is just going by you, and you're still longing for that relationship where, you can actually be with somebody that you can actually go out to dinner with and take long walks on the beach with. You don't get to have that. But as I said, this is a subconscious fear. This is something that you're probably not really haven't been aware of. So I want to do some EFT tapping with you about this today and see if we can kind of get things moving, because you're going to need to decide. You're going to need to make a decision, and put a time limit on this, because this is your life that's ticking away, and so being stuck is a really, really bad place to be. So let's do some tapping. We'll just start on the karate chop point for this one. Even though maybe there is a part of me that's really afraid that if I meet this man, my bubble is going to burst. Because maybe I'm going to find out that what I thought I felt for him was all just a fantasy that I projected. And I built all of my feelings about him on a fantasy. And boy, am I going to feel like an idiot. Maybe there's a part of me that would rather just not meet him, that would rather just put obstacles in the way so that I won't have to meet him. And then at least I won't have to feel like such an idiot. I can just blame it on him. He was never able to meet me because of his work or whatever the case, whatever excuse there was. And it may be a valid excuse. But I get to feel better because I won't feel like such an idiot when I meet him and discover that this is all based on fantasy. And that's my biggest fear. But I choose to love and honor myself anyway, even though I may have just wasted months of my life on a total fantasy. Even though I really want this relationship to move forward. I really want to know, one way or the other, whether this guy is going to be somebody that I'm going to have a future with or not. But there always seems to be all these obstacles. And maybe I'm afraid. Maybe I am afraid on a subconscious level. Maybe part of me doesn't want to meet him. Maybe part of me just wants to play it safe. Because as long as I don't meet him, yeah, sure, I may date other men, but I still have my heart set on this one. I won't allow myself to really get close to anybody because I still need to find out if there's any chance that this could work out. So I'm just stuck here. And maybe on some level it feels safer that way, to just be stuck. Because if I move forward, I could really get hurt. I could end up being very disappointed when it doesn't work out. Maybe I'll meet him and it'll be just like that other couple. Maybe I'll meet him and I'll feel absolutely nothing. I don't want that to happen. Even though there may be this part of me that is really blocking this meeting from ever happening because I'm really scared. And maybe he's scared too. But I choose to face my fears about this because I choose to move forward with my life. I choose to put a time limit. I choose to set a time limit, and if we haven't met by that time, I'm just going to have to move on with my life. And I'm just going to have to accept the fact that either I just have too many things, too many issues that I still need to work on because I'm blocking myself from having a real relationship, or maybe this just isn't the one for me. But I can't allow this to go on forever, because then I'm really going to end up feeling like an idiot. Now let's tap through the points. Top of the head. I don't want to let go. I feel like this man could be my soulmate. But if that were true, if that's really true that this is a soulmate, wouldn't we be meeting each other? If we never meet each other, then doesn't that kind of mean that maybe it's not meant to be? If something is so difficult, if something feels like it's so much hard work, relationships aren't supposed to be hard work. They're supposed to be easy. They're supposed to be fun. If it's that difficult to actually meet this man, then evidently one of us or both of us is really putting up some strong blocks, some subconscious blocks. Maybe we're both just too terrified of getting too intimate. Maybe we're both just terrified of the reality of being in a relationship, of the everyday being in a relationship and what that means. God knows I've had my share of being hurt and disappointed and being heartbroken in a relationship. And maybe he has too. But I choose to face my fears, and I choose to let go of my fear of meeting this man, because I want more than anything to finally meet this man so that I can know one way or the other whether this fantasy relationship has any chance at all of becoming a real relationship. I want to know what it's like to be with a man in the flesh, to be with somebody that I can actually wake up in the morning with, that I can actually go out on dates with, that I can actually go for walks on the beach with. I want to have somebody here that can physically hold my hand. And so I'm willing to let go of my fears and trade in my fantasy relationship for a real one. Whether that means that it's going to be with this man, or whether I will decide that it's time to move on and find someone else more appropriate. But either way, I won't be stuck anymore. I won't be putting my life on hold anymore. Because if this man isn't the right one for me, I know that the right one is out there for me. And I don't want to waste any more of my life being afraid. I want to keep my heart open and know that the right man for me is waiting for me to show up. But I can't show up if I'm stuck on some fantasy man that I've never even met and maybe never will meet, for all I know. So I choose to set a boundary about this. I choose to set a time limit. And if it becomes evident to me that we're not going to meet within that time limit, then I will choose to move on. Because I know that if he really is my soulmate, he will move heaven and earth to be with me. He's not going to let anything stop him from being with me. Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, so I hope that if you've been stuck, I hope that this is going to help to get you unstuck. And just know that, you know, if you've already been stuck, and you've been stuck for, months, weeks, or months, setting a boundary and saying, you know what, this really isn't enough for me. I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied with just Skype calls and chatting. I really need to meet you in person. And if we can't do that by this date, then I really need to move on. Maybe it's just not meant to be, or at least not at this time, because you don't want to stay stuck. This is your life, and it's passing you by. So remember the story that I told you, because it was a true story. That's why I wanted to share that with you. So until the next video, I hope this helped you. My name is Dawn Priolat. I'm in Thailand right now, and this is how we end. Thank you for watching my video, and thank you for subscribing to my channel so that you can continue to get more videos just like these. So I'll see you in the next one.